Yeah.
I haven't
I
had too
mean,
many, guests on from California yet.
really? Yeah,
Yeah.
we live in Redding. I don't know if you're familiar where that is. It's pretty close to the Oregon border,
Yeah. Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
Northern California.
I heard it's beautiful there.
It is, it's very pretty. We have 3 mountain ranges, Mount Shasta, which is a 14er, all kinds of natural waterfalls and hiking trails and just amazing stuff like that. It's Redding's fun because it's right on the interstate, so it's easy to get up to Portland, down to Sacramento, or over to San Francisco, but yet it's even though it's growing a lot, it still has a small town atmosphere, which is kinda
Yeah.
nice.
No, that's amazing, that's amazing. Well, Julie, super excited to talk with you today, and I know we've been trying to do this for several weeks now, so I'm very excited that we finally get to do the podcast conversation. As I came across you on LinkedIn, but then I found the Renegade series that you've written, and I just started going down a rabbit hole because you're one of the few female Civil War authors out there, and I also saw where you were part of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and my grandmother was actually a part of that as well, so I started just looking
Really?
through, like, some correlations because I know she was interested in a lot of that as well, and I learned a lot from her,
Yeah.
but I was like, no one else has ever told me stories or shared books,
Really?
about that as much before, then I found you, and I was like, "Oh, okay, like, this is super cool." But my question is, how did you get interested in this subject and then the Civil War and writing books about it?
Well, I've always been fascinated with the Victorian era, I'd have to say, more than anything. My husband and I are originally from Iowa. We've been married almost 45 years, but we decided we wanted to move to Colorado after we'd been married for a few years just because we love the mountain towns. And I love the Victorian atmosphere and all the old stories and just that era, that whole era just fascinated me. And then I, happened to actually, this is a weird story. I happened to actually go up to one of the mountain towns one time, and it was this little toy store, and, they were running this contest, the toy company was running this contest, and they were gonna fly people out to Gettysburg because that's where their home office was. So I signed up, I'm like, "What the heck?" Well, I was one of the winners. So they flew me out, and my husband didn't wanna go, he should have gone, but he missed out. Opportunity of a lifetime. Anyway, my son went with me, and it was just fascinating because growing up in Iowa, living in Colorado, I'd never seen a Civil War battlefield. I thought they were the size of a football field. I was pretty naive about it. And then going to see Gettysburg, wow, it's like the daddy of them all pretty much. And so I got inspired to write a story, and the stories that I mostly read about the Civil War we're from the officer's side, the battlefield descriptions, northern soldiers. Sorry, that's my dog scratching at the door. She wants, but nothing really from the southern side. I grew up in Iowa. They didn't teach you the southern side. And I got curious. I was like, why would every single southern soldier want to fight to preserve something as horrible as slavery? Well, they didn't. And the more research I did, the more I found out about it. And so I decided I wanted to write a book from the perspective of just a typical Southern kid and why he would enlist, what would inspire him to go. And then one book turned into 2, turned into 3, and then I went back and wrote a prequel, so right now there's 4 in the series. I've written 2 side stories to go with it, and I'm gonna write the 5th book, probably start this fall, writing the 5th book, and then wrap up the series, and I don't know what I'm gonna do after that. I might continue on with, another family member or something, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. When you started off to write the book, did you foresee it being as long of a series, or did that kind of organically happen as you got into it?
It happened on its own, and a lot of writers will tell you once they start writing, their characters take over, the books write themselves. I'm a plotter, so I plot my stories out, But even so, something will come up, I'm like, "This is changing everything. I have to put this in here," you know? So, yeah, that's
What
how
were
it came
some
about. It's just I started writing a book, and I wanted him I just randomly chose this place in Alabama, which is called Ryan Crossroads. Well, my maiden name is Ryan. I'm like, "That's a sign. We'll have him be from there." So then one thing just led to the other, and he enlists with the Confederate cavalry. I'm a horse lover, so we had to get the horses in there. And, then the book just kept growing and growing, so it was getting to be too long, so I split it into 2.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. What are some things that I don't know, what are some things you learned about while writing these stories as far as like direct, information and research you did, about the Civil War? Was there anything you learned about that you were like, wow, I had no idea. You talked about like the battlefield, you had your expectation, but it was way different when you saw it. Are there
Uh-huh.
some other things that you learned about through your journey of writing these?
Yeah, tons, tons of stuff. It's just amazing. And the weird thing about the Civil War was that for the most part, it was, well, at least in the Eastern Theater, it was in basically in Virginia. It was a concentrated area. Like the first Battle of Manassas happened, and then the following year, the second Battle of Manassas on the same battlefield, essentially. And that happened several times. And it was just kind of gruesome because they'd be fighting, and then these bones had come up from the previous soldiers that had just been randomly, quickly buried there or whatever. And just stuff like that, just weird stuff. One thing that's interesting about the cavalry that I learned was that the Southern soldiers brought their own horses because they were mostly rural at that time. So they were horsemen, they knew how to ride. Most of the Northern soldiers were farmers or they came from big cities. They weren't acquainted with, riding horses. They were used to being around workhorses. So at the beginning of the war, the Confederate cavalry far outshone the Northern cavalry until about the time of Gettysburg, and that's when the Northern cavalry caught up, pretty much. But yeah, the Northern guys, they were provided horses, so they had to learn how to be cavalrymen from the get go.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I love learning about this isn't a subject, as I've gotten into my professional space, it's not something I spend a lot of time looking back on unless there's a movie or something that catches my attention. And as I'm trying to challenge myself and others to read more and learn more, I just feel like this is such a great time of in history to go back and learn about and just how
Yeah,
important it was and what all transpired and what was the meaning behind it, why did it happen? I think there's so many people that don't know nowadays. And again, we just it's been a while. We don't think about it all the time, but it's just
yeah,
such an interesting story of what all transpired there. And I'm so glad you put your book series together because it brings, kind of a level of enjoyment along with also learning.
yeah. Like I said, I've learned a lot from the beginning of it, just how the war came about, all the different aspects. And it was a really interesting time in our history because there was a lot going on at that time. There was westward expansion. There was still the issue of slavery. Initially, when the war started, it was more of a kind of a back issue, but then Lincoln brought it into the forefront by making the Emancipation Proclamation, which only applied to Southern states, by the way, not Northern states. And at the time of the Civil War, there were still Northern states that allowed slavery. And that's something they don't tell you in the history books. They make it, black and white, North and South. It wasn't like that at all. There's family members fighting against each other, taking different sides. There was King Cotton, which the North was taxing the heck out of the South, and that was one of the major reasons why they fought up against them was for economic reasons. Plus the Transcontinental Railroad. The South wanted it to go through the southern states, of course. The North just the opposite, because whichever way it went, part of the country would prosper from it. So once the war started, Lincoln signed into effect that the Transcontinental Railroad would be built on northern soil. So that's what happened.
So interesting. So interesting. Julie, as you I mean, you've written several books. Did you grow up, like, loving to read and write, or when did you discover, "Hey, this is my passion, this is what I wanna do," and, you've built a life out of, writing books and publishing several of them?
Yeah. Well, I started writing mostly I was a kid and I just started writing songs and poems. And then it kind of expanded into short stories. And then when my kids were little, I wrote children's books and drew pictures to go with them just to entertain my kids. As they grew, my books did too. So once they were in middle school, I was writing middle grade fiction and young adult from there. And then my first novel, which is A Beckoning Hellfire, was actually the first one. But it's not the first one in the series. It's actually the second one,
Yeah.
which gets confusing. But yeah.
Yeah. What was your strategy? So obviously, like everything I've found on you, it's J.D.R Hawkins. What's the story behind wanting to use that pen name instead of Julie?
Well, those are my initials. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure. I don't mean to sound sexist or anything, but I wasn't sure how guys would take a female telling these war stories. Especially, like, reenactors, those guys take it seriously. I am not kidding you. They're representing their ancestors and stuff, and they know their history back and forth, and I just thought, I might be more accepted into their social circles if they don't really know I'm a woman, until I got out to book signings and stuff, and then I realized they don't care.
Yeah. I
But I
figured
did
that
have a
was
couple of I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I figured or I was assuming that may have been the case just because of the topic you were writing about. I was curious if that was the reason you kinda were like, because 'cause I've even thought about just like simple my last name, it looks different than it sounds. It's Kleinard, but people say Clenard. My middle name's Chase, so I'm like, if I ever write a book, I'm gonna call it just by Christopher Chase instead of my last
Yeah,
name, just for that simple
yeah.
reason.
A lot
Um
of authors do that, yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious to know just like if that was the reason, it was because the topic and trying to appeal to a male audience, also, wanting them to be interested in reading the books. And it sounds like that's exactly the
Yeah.
case.
That is. Over the years, I've discovered just, by offering the books up, who shows up to signings, things like that. Both genders love the books, men and women alike. And kids, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, "These books should be included in school curriculums because they teach a lot and they're fascinating." It's a family saga, and a lot of people get into that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of drama, suspense, action, adventure, all that stuff, and the series, it's called the Renegade Series, and it actually starts out at the very beginning of the war when Jefferson Davis is being inaugurated. That's the opening scene, and then right now it goes up through Reconstruction, and with the 5th book, it's gonna talk more about westward expansion because my protagonist, his name is David Summers. He's only 14 when the war starts, but when he enlists oh, he's 16 when the war starts. When he enlists, he's 18. He just turns 18. And then by the time it's ending, he's gonna be in his late 20s or so. And that's about the same time that things really get interesting out west. So, living in Colorado, I just wanted to incorporate that part of it, and I know a lot about the state and that area, so he's gonna, actually, one of the side stories I wrote called Fool's Gold Folly, which was just published, is about a minor character in the series, and he goes to Breckenridge, Colorado in search of gold. So David is gonna follow him out there, and we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, very cool. Is your plan for the fifth book to be the last of this series or still just going to let it play out?
I think it'll be the last, but like I said, it might lead into another series, or it might lead into another story about, his daughter, or I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet.
Yeah. You kinda answered my next question was just, do you have other projects that are in planning, or do you plan to, again, kinda letting it flow, but it sounds like you will write more, which is awesome. You
Yeah.
just kinda yet to be determined what direction you're gonna go with it.
Yeah. I know I'm gonna write the 5th book. I also have another book. It's historical fiction, but it's not Civil War. It's about Prohibition and vaguely based on my relatives. My great aunt and uncle ran a hotel in Sioux City, Iowa. That's my hometown. During that time, and apparently, according to family folklore, they were involved with Al Capone and all these gangsters coming in and out of the hotel. So I kind of, wrote a quick kind of a mystery story. I'm gonna go back and rewrite it. It's more like a young adult cozy mystery, I would call it, but it's fun, you know? It's fun talking to my relatives and, "Oh, yeah, I heard this story where they did this and that," and, incorporating it in the book is pretty fun.
Yeah. That sounds like a book I would like to read for sure. That sounds like a real books for guys type of book for sure. Julie,
Even though the
what
main character is a
is
girl, but oh
something I that doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll still love it.
well.
What is Julie, as you write, and obviously you love what you do, you're passionate about it, but what's your favorite part of it? Is it knowing that there's a lot of people out there that have enjoyed it, so you love hearing from it? Is it just getting lost in the world and the characters that you're creating, and it's just you get to be creative doing this? But like, what's your favorite part of the process?
I'd say all of the above. Definitely not the editing. But yeah, it's fun to come up with storylines. It's fun to hear what people, have to say about it. I had one lady buy the whole series not too long ago, and I mean, her son bought it for her for Christmas. And I've never met her, but I know her son, and he said she's taking her time reading it because she loves it so much she doesn't want it to end. And I thought, "That's awesome, I'm actually making an impact on somebody," and I've heard that from a lot of other people too, that they didn't know the Southern perspective, they didn't know how much suffering they went through, and it was terrible, just terrible. I mean, Gone with the Wind kinda touches on it a little bit, but no, it was really horrible. General Sherman, I'm sorry, that guy he was a warmonger big time. I mean, as soon as the Civil War ended, he went out and he's killing Indians, I mean, that guy, I don't know, something was
Yeah.
wrong with that one, but anyway,
Yeah. Not good, not good. Well,
no.
Julie, I really just this has been such fantastic. I love talking about this. I've got just one more question for you though, and I ask everyone that comes on this podcast, and I guess it's a two-part question. Obviously, it sounds like you grew up like loving to write, and it's led you to where you're at now. My first question is, did you also love to read? And what are some of your personal favorite books that has had an impact on you both personally and professionally?
Wasn't a big reader in school too much, I was mostly a creative person, so I was, into arts and stuff, and a singer-songwriter too, I was in a band and everything. Mostly, I love Gone with the Wind, I love, Animal Farm and The Outsiders, all that kinda stuff. But like I said, I wasn't really a reader until more recently, and then I decided I was gonna sit down and read some of these classics that I had skipped over when I was a kid, so I went back and read Old Yeller and The Yearling and stuff like that, animal stories, I love animal stories.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's funny, as I ask people that question, it seems like people and I'm just thinking of the conversations I've had. If you started writing earlier and that's something you really enjoyed, well, that's what you did. You didn't spend as much time reading. But I've talked to a lot of people recently who've like started writing came later. The reading happened first. So then, they got ideas and then it led to writing because people think there's such a correlation, like writing, reading, writing. Everyone like puts them in the same category. It's like two totally different things and you can be interested in one and not the other. Um, which is a lot like me. Like I'm opposite. I could read a book all day, but if you ask me to write something, I'll be like, I don't know if I can write a full page. I just don't know what I can come up with.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very special talent that you have and a gift to be able to put these stories together and come up with such, entertainment through a book series. I just think that's so fascinating because it's just something I can't fathom myself doing. So I'm like, man, that's amazing that you can do that.
You sound like my husband. He says the same thing.
Yeah.
But he's got a mathematical mind, so he can do way more with his
Yeah.
contemplate doing, so yeah. We all
Yeah.
have our special talents, I guess.
That's right. That's right, we do. Well, Julie, thank you again for taking the time to do this, and I've got one of your books on the website. I'm gonna get them all on there, so if anyone's interested, they can find them. Obviously, we're super excited about your future work as well, so we can't wait to see what the 5th book looks like and the rest of the avenues you decide to go down. Now that we've met, I'll be definitely paying attention to that and looking forward to it. But Julie, again, this has been fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to come on the Books for Guys podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself. It was so nice to meet you.
You as well, Julie.